Hi there, everyone. I'm driving to work. I'm using one hand on the steering wheel and one hand to hold the phone. I'd like to share an experience I had last night where I had a very horrific dream. I'm going to talk loud because I'm trying to talk over any road noise you might hear. Hopefully you can hear me okay. If not, I'm going to delete the video and maybe make it later. But anyway, I want to share this dream while it's fresh in my mind. We've seen a lot of the Joker movies. He is the arch nemesis of the comic book hero Batman, and he's the most popular nemesis. And I'm sure you would agree that society is becoming a lot more accustomed to extreme graphic violence. In our video games and in our movies, we're seeing a lot of it. And it seems with every succeeding Joker movie, there's an increase in violence and acceptability and tolerance for it. I am personally disturbed by this. I've had discussions with friends where they say, violence in the video game world and the movie world, it's all fantasy and it doesn't have, it doesn't correlate to, or it doesn't cause violence in people's lives. Of course, there was a shooting recently in Texas that was very terrible. So we're asking them these questions again. I personally think there is some causation there, but I don't feel that I can speak to it very easily. Anyway, it was interesting to have this dream last night. It was a dream where basically different incarnations of the Joker on screen banded together. They all existed in this dream. So there was Heath Ledger's Joker, and there was Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and maybe one or two others that are not as mentionable, not as known. And they wreaked havoc, very extreme, violent havoc. And they did this, they constructed games where they would kill people, and the whole goal was to kind of bring out as much panic and fear out of the people that they were killing. And there was sometimes it was left to chance. In torture, they say that the most terrible thing about it is the anticipation. So if you're strapped to a bed and someone is playing with their tools that they're going to use to torture you with, and you are able to see these tools, and you're able to see, I made a video once called Modern Medicine where the doctor was basically a sadist, and he licks a knife, sadistically. Anyway, I think surgery is kind of an archaic form of healing. Anyway, it's a separate subject, but like the torturer will brandish their weapons of destruction to elicit a reaction out of you. And that's what these Jokers were doing in my dream. And one particular scene, there are a few things that I can remember while it's still fresh in my mind. One particular scene involved a policewoman who was actually the deceased mother of a friend of mine. She was somehow the police person. I would have never normally thought she'd be a police person, but she was like a detective, and basically the police surrendered their authority to the mob. And at one point, a news crew went to the police station and asked this policewoman, my friend's deceased mother, who's now alive in the spirit world, what are you doing about this reign of terror that is occurring in our country now? What are you doing about, the reign of terror in our local province? And she said, well, there's not much I can do about it. One thing we are planning to do is increase security here at the police station, and we're going to make like a hidey hole. We're going to create a space where we can hide away from these terrible anarchic people, these violent people. And so they went about showing the construction that was happening on the hidey hole, and basically this policewoman was going to box herself in indefinitely. And it was interesting because my reaction to that was that that's never going to stop them. But basically the police were rendered useless, and there were all these kinds of disgusting and depraved things that were happening, where people were embracing a culture of violence. There were school students in uniforms. I remember this one scene where there were these violent games going on where people were killing each other, and in this arena type, well, it was actually an open field, but there was this pole, and some school-age children were climbing up the pole, and two girlfriends were daring each other. They were very high up on the pole, and they were daring each other to jump off to their death. And as one of them was talking, the other one just jumped, and she fell limp to the ground head first, and she stopped moving. And the other girl looked at her lifeless body, and you could see the intent written on her face that she was going to do that too. But the scene shifted in the dream. And then later, that policewoman actually was snuffed out. The two Jokers, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker, found her, and they knew she was the last bastion of kind of dignity and law and order in the culture. And it wasn't so much important to them that she was killed, but that her symbol, what she meant as a symbol, was killed. So they did everything they could to get her out of her spot, and they succeeded. And I think the dream ended around there. I remember myself breathing awake, and at a certain point I couldn't take any more. I was so sick to my stomach, and I think I knew somehow that I could find myself out of this. And I breathed, and everything changed, and I came back to my waking self, and I was very gratified. I remember the shift to the consciousness of this world, of the earth, of the physical realm, and I remember being very gratified that it was all just a dream. However, the fear was very intense, and I felt it, and it lingered inside of me. And I thought to myself, I really ought to change. I really need to change in my life. I can't take this sign and do nothing with it. And I'm not going to tell you that I will change, but it's interesting, I find, and I want to relate this, that God is putting these things in our path and giving us the opportunity to change all the time. I think we would like to be ignorant of this fact. We'd like to be ignorant of the fact that God is always giving us opportunities to change. I used to think that it was impossible to change, and that it's too hard. You're born into suffering. Everyone is suffering around you, and no one wants to do anything better. They accept the status quo as it is. And so nothing will change, and I can't change. I don't have whatever I need, a temerity of spirit or a dogged you know, a dogged, determined resolve, conviction, whatever. I don't have it. I can't do it. But, you know, after listening to the Divine Truth teachings and you know, having some of these things pointed out about the law of attraction and the law of compensation and stuff like that, I feel that I'm getting into a better awareness of all the ways in which God is giving me opportunities, and I'm seeing that I'm just one of these people that is using my sadness and despair as an excuse not to change. So I'm not saying that I will change, because I'm actually very opposed to change. I heard once that there's a sliding scale of change, a desire to change and a desire to learn. And it's a multiplication scale. It goes from 1 to 10. If your desire to learn is at a 3 and your desire to change is at a 2, then you multiply the 3 and the 2 and you get 6. And if your desire to change is at a 7 and your desire to learn is at a 9, then you have 69. And if it's a 1 and a 1, then it's 1. And if it's a 10 and a 10, it's 100. And I find that very fascinating. Well, I feel that my desire to change is maybe a 1. I feel it's probably a 1. My desire to learn might be a 2. I feel like I'm a little more open to that, but not much to change. But anyway, I guess my final point would be that, is the dream really a fantasy? Why are we indulging in extreme violence? Why do we gravitate towards that? Why are we watching these movies? Why are we creating these movies? Yes, there's the element of having our fears triggered, and then they can rise from us, and then we have the opportunity to feel that fear. So I think there is some positive aspect to viewing these things, and I want to work on that a little bit, because usually I stay away from extreme violence. I really hate slasher films, but I'm thinking now maybe I should just take, you know, a night and give myself 4 hours and watch a horrible slasher movie and pause it every time something terrible happens and feel how I feel. But yeah, at the risk of scaring you and making you want to move to the countryside because society is collapsing, I'm saying that perhaps this culture that we have is actually really screwed up, and yeah. Of course we need to change. Of course, it's everyone's choice to do that. But will you, is the question. Do you want to? All right. That's all.